Well, today, before we go racing, I want to talk about something that's a really, really important aspect of the game we play. It's not aerodynamics, it's not the driver, it's not even the engine. It's these things. It's the shock absorber. You've got no idea what percentage this plays in the outcome of the result, particularly when in these races on circuits with curbs and using different tyres and strategies. If you don't have this right, you are a goner. Now, you've got them in your road car, like we all have there, $400, $500, $600 a set. But in racing, it's a different story. So for our purpose in our current race cars, and in fact, these new Gen 3 cars for next year, Prix, which is a great Australian company, trust me, they've been around for 70 years, family owned, making shock absorbers. They know their stuff. Well, they buddied up with another company, Supershock, Prix and Supershock, to build the Prix Supershock. Now, Supershock is part owned or majority owned by our upstairs Oscar Ferranotto, our TV engineer. That's right. And they made world-class racing shock absorbers. So it was a perfect partnership. So Prix brought to the game, brought to supercars, this Prix Supershock. Now, just let me show you a couple of simple things. Just like in your road car, you have a spring. The spring actually holds the weight of your car. The shock absorber does two things. It controls when that spring contracts, there's a lot of energy gets released, the shock absorber controls that. But most of all, and in our game, it controls the timing at which the way a car moves around on its tyres, on braking, on acceleration, and on turning, and when you hit curb. Now let me just show you some vision here. You'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Let's roll this vision. You'll see, here's Davey Reynolds. So you've got to hit the curb. Now watch when it comes down on the ground. You want the car to settle quickly to put that rubber on the road. That's the shock absorber doing that. Now watch here where he does what we call change of direction. He turns, watch the body roll of the car. That is the shock absorber controlling the rate at which that car rolls. Now, if that car doesn't roll at the desired rate for the driver, he will lose traction. If it doesn't come down off the curb, it will lose traction. If it doesn't whack the curb and absorb the impact of that, it'll actually fling the car off and you'll lose traction. And to give you an example, I've just put this Gen 3 Camaro up off the ground as it would be in a pit stop. I just want you to watch down here and watch along the tyres. When I pull this air wand out, here we go. Look at that. See how quickly that car settled? It just went down, bang, on its shock absorbers. Now that's not a fluke, that's a lot of science and engineering in that shock absorber to do that. Now let's have a bit of a closer look. I don't want to bog down on too much detail, but what I do want you to see is some of the beautiful engineering that is part of this shock absorber. And you can see here, Supershock and Prix bring a whole range for the whole field in here. And finally, I'm going to show you the shock dyno. When we're changing direction, as I said, the shock goes at about 1 inch per second, and then when we're hitting bumps, I can wind that right up to about 1 metre a second. That's what it's got to do. So the art in this game, and that's where Prix and Supershock have mastered it, is controlling both ends of the spectrum. So if you're watching Wimbledon tonight, if you're watching the golf, not anything, if you don't select the right club, if you don't select the right strings in your racket, well, if you don't select the right shocks, you're a goner.